type things that in 6-8, if you don't have the calculator, at home on your computer or have one available, this is something you're probably going to end up wanting to do in class because otherwise it's going to get kind of long and nasty a little bit. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use the graphing calculator to find x-intercept, so that's pretty easy. I mean, you just see where it goes across x, or you look at the table and see where your y value is 0. Minimums and maximums, we'll talk about that here a little bit momentarily. And then intervals where we're increasing and decreasing. Now, let's start with the simple stuff here. Maxes and mins. I'm going to come back up to the top of the page to draw pictures here. If you see any sort of a graph and there's like a hill or a hump type thing here, common sense, that's going to be a maximum. Okay? So if you hit a high point and then it starts to go back down in either direction, you have a maximum. Just the opposite, if you see where there's a dip and then it heads the other way, that value at the very bottom is a minimum. And they're not always going to be whole numbers. That's why the calculator comes in mighty handy when we're doing things. And then we've done the whole increasing and decreasing thing before, but we're going to play with it again here. So there's a few button presses in the calc that are going to help us out a bit. Oh, gracious, I have a play-by-play man in the back. So, let me get this turned on. Okay. Go ahead, and we're just going to go ahead and type in this first equation and see what it looks like. And then we can start maybe figuring some of this stuff out. Let's see what we got working here. Okay, that's kind of funky. So in just looking at it, I noticed that it goes across the x-axis 1, 2, 3 times. And that makes sense because there should be 3 zeros or 3 answers. So I can either try to visually look at it if I think I can see them. If not, I can always, again, hit second and graph and get the table up and hope I can find the zeros that way. And if I can't, we're going to have an option. We're like, uh-oh. I don't see any y values right now that are 0. And that's my key to knowing if I have an intercept or not. So it's like, crap. None of them are on whole numbers. Okay, we can live. Well, what am I going to do then? Because, shoot, I don't know what the heck's going on. Well, there's a couple of things I can do. Let me go back to the table for a second. If I have some values in this table that would help me graphing this polynomial, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot those. So, for instance, like 0, 1, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to plot that. 1, -5, I'm going to go ahead and plot that. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, Hardy, you're messing up already. Good thing for whiteout. Again, another lesson here, another quick commercial break in the middle here for quit using pen when you're doing math stuff. Because then when you do something bad, it's hard to erase once you have whiteout. So, let's try this again. -1, 7, -2, -5, 1, -5, and 2, 7. Now, don't connect the dots yet, okay? Because we're going to have some very specific points we're going to get in there with it. We just want to let this kind of help us make our graph a little more accurate. So here's how this is going to work. Since I don't know what my intercepts are, a couple of button presses to play with here. So let me get back to my graph for a second. If you hit your second button and then hit trace, okay, that's going to bring up the calculate screen. Okay, I'll even make a little note here on what we're hitting as we go along. Oops, maybe. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hit second and trace. That's going to calculate the screen. I want the second thing. Okay, I want zeros. You can either hit 2 or you can arrow down. And when you get to the 0, it's going to start asking you questions. Our job is to trap the intercept. And here's what I mean. When it says left bound there, what it's actually attempting to do at this point is say, okay, your little blinky guy, we're going to trap this space around the x-axis. So, as I move my blinky guy, basically he needs to be below the x-axis when I'm doing this. So, anywhere below, if it's down here, up here, doesn't matter. Once I get below the x-axis, I'm going to hit enter. Then it's going to ask me for my right bound. It locks that point in. Well, if I want to know where the intercept is, where the 0 is, my blinky guy, correct. Okay, has to be somewhere above the x-axis because then it'll test out all the points that are in between. So once I get above it, I'm going to hit enter twice. And it'll tell me what my 0 is, or what my x-intercept is. So my first x-intercept is at negative 1.78. Oh, actually, I should probably round off to 9. If you put negative 1.78, I'm not going to jump up and down the screen. You could do that too. Okay? So that's one of them. You're like, oh crap, that's only one. To get the others, we're going to repeat the process. So it's second, trace. Okay, I'm looking for zeros right now, so go down to 2. And we're going to start this process again. Now here's the part that gets tricky. You notice how last time when we did the left bound, we were under x and then we went above it? Now, since our x value is in this position, our left bound is actually going to be above because we have to follow the direction of the graph. So for instance here, my first point as I'm coming around the edge is going to be above. So anywhere above the x-axis, I hit enter. And then my next point is anywhere below here. Doesn't matter which specific spot. And I hit enter twice, and it gets me the next one. And again, if you wanted to put 0.1, 0.11, that's fine. Okay, let's take a peek here. Hang on just a second. We'll pause. The trickiest thing is figuring out, once we hit second and trace, and again, I can either arrow down or I can just hit 2 for 0. When it says left bound, again, you're just following along on this polynomial until you start seeing, ooh, now there's going to be an x-intercept coming. Before I get to it, I need to hit enter one time. Okay, that'll set me up in my space below it in this case. Now at this time, I keep going. Now I'm above it, so I've trapped it, in other words. I've got one point I locked in below and one point that I'm locking in up above. That second point, that's when I get to hit enter twice. And that's going to give me my last one. Now, some of you may be looking at the y value and you're going, 1e negative 12. What the heck? Yes, which basically is 0. Okay? So that's what we're doing on these. But the thing that's tricky is, because you'll notice, one of the times, we were below and above. Then the next time, we were above and below. It just is, as you work your way along, oops, and then I just went and did that. You just are trapping that point in. That's all you're doing. So if you're working along and it's increasing in value, you'll trap below, and then trap above. If you're over here, and it's decreasing or coming down, you trap above, then you trap below. Okay? But that's always how the zeros are going to work. And then that's going to give me some more dots to be able to put on here that are going to make my graph more accurate. You're like, holy cow, look at all those points we've got on there now. I know, it's getting kind of ridiculous, but we're going to be uber accurate here. So we've got the intercepts taken care of. And again, we're going to be doing more of these. So if there's ever a button press, like, wait a minute, how'd that work again? It's going to come back. So when we get to the max, okay, we're going back to that second trace menu. But this time, I'm going to use number 4. So let's see here. Second trace. Okay, I want number 4, the maximum this time. And we're just like we did with the intercept, we're going to trap the max. So when I look at it, my maximum, again, is when it looks like the top of a hill or top of a mountain. So up in this area that I'm kind of got Mr. Blinky guy is what I'm looking for. It's the same idea when we track. In this case, since it's going up, and then I'm going to catch it, okay, when it says left bound, it actually means it this time. Anywhere to the left of that hump point up here at the top, right there, okay, I can go ahead and hit enter. When I arrow through, I need to be somewhere to the right of it. Once I'm anywhere to the right of it, again, I'm testing all of the points now from where I hit it the first time through here. And the calculator knows it's just looking for the maximum. It's just looking for that peak. So once I hit over onto the right, I can hit enter twice, and there's my maximum. So now here, my maximum here looks to be at -1 if I round off to 0.9999. Okay, 7. And I need to know both, the whole coordinate point, so when I'm graphing, I know where it's going to be. Yeah. Yeah, it's all going to depend on the calculator, depending on which points you have on each side, may round slightly differently. But yeah, we're still going to end up rounding anywhere there. So yep, you've got the same thing. Okay? I've only got one max, though. I only see one, like, hill type thing. So that's the only one I have for this one. However, when I do min, you'll never guess which menu we're going to use. Second trace. What number am I hitting this time? 3. So second trace 3 gets me the min. The process works the same way. So I'm sitting here going along on my polynomial. I see that min is coming. Okay, it's kind of like a dip. This time, again, I'm going to be to the left of my dip. So where my blinky guy is, in one of these spots maybe, I can hit enter, lock that place in. Now since I want to trap the min that's down here, I want to be to the right of it somewhere so I have plenty of points to work with. So if I hit enter twice at that point, that's going to get me my min, which looks like it's at 1, -5. You're like, all right, we already got a point there. Right, so we've gotten fortunate with that and picked it up off the chart. We didn't know that when we started that it was going to be there. So that's my minimum value. So I start looking, I'm like, okay, no more maxes, no more mins. I have all these dots. Now let's try to graph this thing, try to make a picture out of this. So I just kind of keep looking at the picture, drawing, trying to ignore my heckler in the back. Let's see if I can point here on which one. I just took that. I went to my table when I initially graphed it, and anything I saw in a whole number that I could put on the chart, I just went ahead and did. So I actually just picked that up, that first dot I had, when I initially graphed it. I just picked it up from there. Gotcha. So now that I've got this, I can actually answer the last questions on my own here. So increasing. Where is the graph going up from left to right? Okay, looks like it's coming up till it gets to here, right? So where am I starting from? -infinity. So -infinity, and where do I hit that maximum point where it turns? X values. I didn't think. What's my X value there? 1. -1. That's one thing we're going to have to keep track of. These are going to be all in X values, all working from left to right, so they're all X's. So I'm looking, I'm like, okay, is there any other place that it's going to be increasing again? Where does it start on my next increasing? X value, 1, starts at 1. So again, we're looking at the X values. That's the tricky thing again here, is to not think about it as a Y. And where does it head off to? Infinity. But whenever we're doing increasing and decreasing, it's always from the X values point of view. Okay, the Y just lets us see where it's at, but the values themselves are X's. So, is there a decreasing? There should be, since we have increasing portions. Here's my decreasing part. We'll kind of mark these off here. I'm like, okay, so I have increasing and increasing. Okay, and it looks like it goes right from -1 to +1. So when I get done with my increasing, decreasing part, I should have covered the entire graph. From -infinity to -1, bless you, -1 to 1, 1 to infinity. I've covered everything from -infinity to infinity. You're like, holy cow, Hardy, that took like 15 minutes. What the heck? It won't once you start getting used to it. It'll just be like anything else, texting and everything else. You'll be hitting buttons and getting numbers and hitting buttons and getting numbers, like, and you'll be done. It just takes a little bit of time here. Any immediate issues on the first one? And again, if you haven't, jot some of the extra help things down on the side, because if you go to do this later, you'll be like, oh crap, I don't know how to do this. All right. So let's take a look at the next one then. All right. It can be. Now, like I said, it's like basically anything you do. It's that first time through that can make things a little bit more complicated. Like me, some of you are going to think I'm making this complicated. Number 2, I'm going to use the decimal form. You can still use the fraction, that's okay. Just for my little presses here, it's a little bit easier for me to use the... just do like a normal fraction. There's not a fancy fractional button. Yes, just use the divide sign. No, it doesn't. Alright, make sure I've got this. Yes, it does. Yeah, some of you are noticing it kind of looks strange. Looks like an M. Kind of looks like the McDonald's logo. Okay? So, again, how many places does it look like it's crossing the... Looks like it's crossing 3 places, which could mean a few things. You might have a double 0. Okay. Probably do, but that's not going to be as big of a deal to us here. Now let's see if we get fortunate. Always check the table quick. Let's see if we have any... Okay, 0, 0. So that tells me one of my x-intercepts is at 0. So I can get that in right away. But it doesn't look like I'm getting much other help. So, we're going to have to go get our own help. So, to find my intercepts, what do? Second, trace 2. We need the 0. And it's time to go trapping. It doesn't matter which one I do first. I normally just work left to right. So again, over here, I'm increasing, so I'm going to do below first, or to the left. Hit enter once. Then I'm going to go above the x-axis to trap it. Once I get above, I can hit enter twice and get my 0. And again, if you go and round to tenths instead of hundredths, that's fine. But don't go to like whole numbers on these. That's getting a little too roundy. Now, I bet some of you are never going to be able to guess where the other one's going. Well, we already know 0, 0. So we're going to go all the way over here, because we already know this one, so we're not going to bother stopping. So let's see. Here, when I'm trapping, my first point comes above it, so I'm going to be above. Keep going, so I trap it by going below. Right, we already know that one. Huh. Okay, mirror image. They're symmetrical, so it ends up being positive 2.83 on the other side. So I can get those 2 points dotted in. Like, all right, we're getting there. So let's see here. What's next on the list? Max. 2 maxes. Okay, so we go to that same old second trace, our calculate screen. And we're going to do this twice. Again, it doesn't matter which one, I just normally work left to right. So back over here. Okay, again, before you get to your peak, somewhere to the left, doesn't matter where, get your little cursor guy, hit enter, lock him in. Then somewhere over the mountain, okay, heading down the other side, heading down the down slope, hit enter a couple of times. We got a nice normal map. So -2, 4. Again, you'll never guess where the other one is. Yeah, I'm thinking 2, 4 sounds like a pretty good likelihood. But let's make sure. Somewhere to the left of my peak, somewhere to the right. Yeah, it is 2, 4. So -2, 4, 4. And we're starting to see our graph take shape. Where's the min? No, the min is not infinity to infinity. I'm guessing it's going to be at 0, 0. But let's see what happens here. The min, it looks like it's at about 0, 0. I'm going to get to the left of it. Then I'm going to go into the dip, and I'm going to come out of it. I'm going to hit enter. Wow! Okay. Again, whenever you see e to the something, that basically means you're getting so many decimal points that they're not going to show you. Anything to the e basically means 0. Yeah, the e number is just 0. So basically it's at 0, 0. Yeah, if you get an e, basically that's going to become a 0. Then we're going to check evens here in a bit, see what's going on. On your minimum.